Welcome to DMM Downloads. We are podcasting another conversation about DMM between Jeff Crabtree and me, Rudy Rivera. Jeff and I are teamed together in Northern Colorado in a ministry we call DMM NOCO. DMM NOCO is unleashing disciple-making movements in Northern Colorado, and we thought it a good idea to start a podcast as a way to bring awareness and resourcing to ordinary people who are passionate about making multiplying disciple makers in our natural networks. Thanks for joining us in this journey. We hope you get a DMM download from this conversation. Well, hey, Jeff.
Rudy.
We're back.
We are back again.
I think it is Tuesday morning. I'm looking at my calendar here. Tuesday morning, June 17th. Recording here back in my living room.
Yeah, back in the studio, which is your living room here.
Yeah, back in the studio, yeah. And you had family visit, and we were just talking. It sounds like it was a great visit. And we're ready to jump back in with another DMM download.
Another week, and let's go.
Let's go. So we're still talking paradigm shifts and really kind of broadening that a little bit to that engineering a paradigm shift, whether that be in a local church context or the individual heart, family, person.
Sure.
And so there's all different levels to that, depending on who's listening and kind of what kind of role you play in life. But certainly we could talk about the individual at this point. So as we kind of continue that part or that kind of storytelling, we wanted to throw it back to you, Jeff, and say, tell us more about this paradigm shift and specifically the topic you want to hit today.
Yeah, there's a variety of them moving from what we'd call attractional church as we know it, traditional church, whatever we want to call to a DMM mentality and ministry or movement. Mm-hmm. There's got to be those paradigm shifts. And the one that I think we can unpack today, which is pretty significant, I think we call it moving from clergy-focused to laity. Mm-hmm. I don't really like those terms, clergy and laity, but I think they've been around a long time and they can help people describe. But it's going from, if you will, a focus on professional mm-hmm. ministers mm-hmm. to everybody's a minister. Every mm-hmm. follower of Jesus is called a minister. So I think we'll talk a little bit of, obviously that fits into what we'd call maybe organized church, but it also fits into for an individual. So if they're on here, our listeners, and they're not really involved or interfaced with a local church, it still has impact because our culture has developed a view of Christianity mm-hmm. where there's professionals and then there's everybody else. Mm-hmm. That makes sense? And what are your thoughts?
Too many thoughts, Jeff. So 2 quick reflections. Just didn't know you were going to share that specifically. One, early 90s, I walk into the church that I wound up working for eventually, kind of really foundational in my upbringing in the Lord. I had left home, gone off to college, found a college church in my campus. And one of the first things I remember them saying was, we're trying to have a phrase that every member minister. So you kind of just said that. You
Sure.
just took me back 30 years or so.
Right.
Secondly, and I've been saying this for 10, 15, 20 years, mostly to myself, but the Reformation, Protestant Reformation, which I'm no church historian, but at some level was a battle, if you will, between laity and clergy. Okay, but I have come to believe in America, the Protestant church essentially operates in the same ways as the Catholic
Very
Church,
similar. Mm-hmm.
right? There's a hierarchy of clergy that the laity essentially wait for to get things done. And so I kind of offensive maybe, and I've grown up my younger years I was in Catholic church, and my high school on I've been in a Protestant church. I just think there's not that much difference in terms of the practice. I do think that there's a clergy-laity split. Okay, that's
I think
reflection.
that's what we're talking about.
Yep.
If we go back, and we don't want to do a deep dive on the Protestant Reformation, but one of the things that was discussed in there, what was called the priesthood of every believer, which really is a biblical concept.
Yep.
And so again, after 325 AD, Constantine became a Christian, really, if you will, a legalized, organized religion. That's where then the Catholic Church kind of took over from that, and pretty soon you have professionals and only they can do the work. So this has been a long-standing issue. It's not just something that's recent, but I think in DMM, we are a part of a modern day Reformation, addressing the same kind of things from there's professional clergy and then there's everybody else. I don't think you could go to the scriptures and verify that. So the point is we've almost adopted a model that we wouldn't say is anti-biblical, but in a way it's anti-biblical.
Yeah.
I guess I would say this statement, which could offend people, but I think if you step back, I don't think it's just any kind of form of church you want. I think that, if you will, the professional clergy versus laity is a spiritual warfare issue.
Whoa.
I think the enemy has brought in deception and lie, because if every follower of Jesus is a priest, every follower of Jesus is a disciple and a disciple maker, then the gospel can spread rapidly in all kinds of unique social, natural environments, which can propel and fulfill the Great Commission. And so I know that'd be a little bold statement for people, but I think it's a work of the enemy that needs reformation.
Tell me more. I don't think, unless you have more something else you want to say.
Let's go back to the Bible for a second. And again, you know, and hopefully our listeners know, and we've emphasized it enough, that DMM, disciple-making movements, puts a spotlight on the Great Commission, that the Great Commission is not optional. Now, most Christians wouldn't say that, but they live like that. And so the reality, it says, go, and as you're going, make disciples. Who's that for? Only professional clergy that have been through seminary or have, their doctorate degree or whatever it might be, an MDiv degree? No, it's every follower of Jesus has been commissioned to be a disciple and a disciple maker. And so we go to the scriptures and we see the priesthood of every believer right there. Martin Luther. We go to Acts chapter 1, verse 8. When the Holy Spirit comes on you, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, othermost parts of the world. Where do we see a Western view of professional clergy in that? Or let me just, one more, we could go on and on today, but 2 Timothy 2:2, Paul says to Timothy, the things you've heard and seen me pass on to other reliable people, plural, who then pass it on to other reliable people, plural. Is that all professional clergy? I have a hard time seeing that that's a reality. So we think that there is a need for a paradigm shift in Western culture, that we do get back, we do have a reformation, we do get back to biblical tenets that disciples are to replicate or multiply themselves in their social and natural networks. That's what DMM is all about. So we're going to have to take a look at this thing that's kind of evolved over hundreds, thousands of years, called church model, and talk about it. Now, we can't unpack all of it today and do a total deep dive, but enough to say there needs to be some talking and discussion about a paradigm shift from professional clergy to disciples or priesthood of the believer. Does that make sense, at least in that part?
Yeah, it does. I want to ask you to drill down one other level, if you can. For the person listening who said, yes, okay, I believe that, or I see that, but how, Jeff? Or, what is a paradigm? Give one example, if you would, for what that could look like, from just going from the theory or the concept of clergy, laity, and the no division, and every member, minister, priesthood of all believers. But give us a practical. What do you think that would look like?
Well, I think the first and foremost for everybody is go back and review the Great Commission. Let's go to what Jesus said when he ascended, right before after he was resurrected, before he ascended. He gave the most important command that's an ongoing command throughout until the end of the age, is what he said. And obviously we're not there yet, is go, or as you're going, as you're living your life, make disciples. And so I think everybody who's accepted Christ or says they're a follower of Jesus, a disciple of Jesus, have they been or are they being trained and equipped to be a disciple maker? So it comes to the most common level as every one of us is to be a disciple and a disciple maker. And so that will rub a little people wrong that just see that, well, you can't do that. Only the trained professional clergy. Okay, show me in the Bible where you see that. And what I've had people say, well, Ephesians 4, apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastor, teachers. Yeah, but what were they to do, Rudy? It says to equip the saints for what? They do the work of ministry. They do the work of service. Not just in a local assembly, they do it in the marketplace because that's what Jesus modeled for us. Does that make sense? So to the average person, you say, how does that all fit? Is take a new look at the Great Commission, and I say, are you around people? Are you willing to be trained and equipped to be a disciple maker in your social or natural network?
Okay, so I'm gonna push you another step here.
Sure.
When you say, are you ready or can you be equipped to be a disciple maker in your natural network? Connect the dots for me. Are you saying, Jeff, like to the average Christian listening, that they are to prepare sermons, and are they supposed to go to Bible school? Are you asking them to stand up and give a 45-minute sermon? Are they supposed to lead a Bible study? Like, can you drill down one more time? I'm going to push you again. What does that look like to be trained in disciple making?
That's good because you kind of shared the old centralized model of clergy versus laity. Is that then if you look into the Great Commission and you sense you are to be a disciple and a disciple maker, equipping means, do you know how to help someone follow Jesus the way you're learning to follow Jesus? Does that make sense? And so the reality is there has to be some kind of training and equipping, but that doesn't mean you have to run off to Bible college or seminary. It means you need to be around someone who's been a disciple maker, and they will help you with the ideas, the principles, modeling of what it means to disciple one other person, and then you start in that discipleship process. Am I answering your question or not?
Yeah, I think so. So you're saying get around practitioners, get around a disciple maker so they can train you? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm inviting, if you're listening to our podcast, we think that maybe you are somewhat interested in the whole broader biblical view of disciple-making movements. So, get around podcasts, listen, read books, attend conferences. But ultimately, the goal is for you to be poured into by a disciple maker so that you can go out and be a disciple maker with another person or other people. So it's more on a grassroots, organic level than this whole hierarchy, centralized, you have to go to Bible college. And don't get me wrong that we're not trashing those. Again, you and I have been in ministry this fall. I'm going in my 48th year of full-time ministry, with 7 of those in the movement world. So I had 40 plus years in that world we're talking about that we're asking people to consider pivoting from. So I understand that world. We're not trashing it. We are saying, though, is it as biblical as we think it is? Does it allow for the gospel to spread organically and naturally and virally? No, because what we see, if we'll look at the church, we come in on Sunday morning predominantly, and there's these rows all geared to looking up front for that professional who's been to Bible college or seminary or got an MDiv degree, and they then dispense knowledge. Those people leave, and we do it week after week, month after month, but those other people that are listening aren't really trained or equipped to usually be disciple makers. Does that make sense?
It does. It really does. Gosh, I have so many questions.
Yeah, it's a pretty deep topic. So listeners know that we are not unpacking the depth of all this. The layers would be too deep, and we'd go through too many podcasts.
For sure. And I think for me, I've got my own headaches with some of those, with this big topic in general. So that's probably a bad way to say it. I'm fumbling through my words. So I will be done talking. Jeff, close us out here. You got about a minute or so.
Yeah, I just again think that we are living in a day and age where there's, I think, a global seismic spiritual shift, a reformation of lots of ways that we look at and activate the gospel. And one of the paradigm shifts is we think that we need to get back to more biblical understanding, move away from centralized professional clergy, and really get the gospel empowering every ordinary disciple to make other disciples in their social and natural networks.
Thanks for sharing that, Jeff.
Thanks, Rudy.
Let's keep engineering paradigm shift.
Amen.
Huh? Okay. Thanks, Jeff, for that engaging download. In DMM, we like to say that disciples are learners. I know I'm learning a lot from my conversations with you, Jeff. From all of us in DMM NOCO, we hope you got a DMM download from the conversation today. Don't forget to leave this podcast a review wherever you are listening online. If you found this conversation helpful, please head over to our site, dmmnoco.com, where you can find more content for your DMM journey, including a self-paced Habits of a Multiplying Disciple course. The course is designed to give you practical next steps to becoming a DMM practitioner and multiplying disciple maker. You can take that course for free at dmmnoco.com. We will be back next week with another engaging DMM download episode. Until then, may you hear from God through His Spirit and take simple steps of obedience in what you hear.